speak on any item not listed on the agenda at this time? Public comments, please. Yeah. It's fine. Approval of minutes, C, do I have a motion? Oh, what do we got?
No minute.
We're behind on some
No minutes,
minutes,
gotcha.
until the PRAs are under handled, we'll get a bunch of minutes later.
Okay, let's move right into business items. So item number one, B1, water wastewater rate study.
We move this until Mark logs on
Mark,
or Hildebrand.
we can, yeah, there's some part to that. Yeah, let's go ahead and move that. We'll move. Rob, we're gonna look at moving that until we get Mr. Hildebrand on. Okay, we'll move into budget overview number 2, D2.
Okay, so Mike, can you pull up?
Presentation.
Yeah, please.
And then I need to. So this is a follow-up to our budget retreat we did on May 5th.
Yeah.
This is the presentation that Susie's working on for tomorrow. We'll just have her walk through it. We're looking to try to get the budget adopted prior to the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of June. And Susie's doing a little great job. I just want to thank her for all of her work on the budget, and I'll let you do the.
Okay.
One quick question can I ask is, so for some reason, if we don't get this budget adopted by the end of June, what kind of bind does that put you in?
So that's one of the slides.
Okay,
we're gonna talk
perfect.
About.
Sorry then, go ahead.
Maybe. You're not open it, Mike.
It's open. This is it. I'm
You want me to do the?
trying to verify if it's being recorded. I'm gonna ask Shannon to let us know real quick.
Cause I can also share my screen. if that's-
Mark is here, by the way.
Oh, good.
Shannon, do you know if the presentation is being presented?
It looks like it's being recorded. It says record up top. Is that what you're asking?
Are you seeing the presentation itself?
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm seeing, oh, it was there, then it went away. Yes, now I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to verify that. Wow.
Thanks.
So we're gonna talk about what has happened since the budget meeting, and then if you could go to the next slide.
You want me to do that one? This slide, thanks.
Since the workshop,
Yes,
okay.
That's 2 minutes it is.
so for the agenda today, we're gonna say what's changed since we met on May 5th. We're gonna say what is included in the budget, what is not included in the budget, why adoption matters, and then staff recommendations. So the changes since the workshop, we've updated some revenue projections and we're seeing about 193,000, an increase. And, then we updated the expenses, from the workshop and, those are outlined in the agenda report for tomorrow, but it was things like SWAT cameras, a police officer, all the things that were approved at that meeting.
Right, okay.
So the general fund has gone up 193 since the
This-
May 5th.
Yes, for this fiscal year,
But then down 138 and then 233.
yes.
Okay.
Projected. Exactly.
Great.
The gas tax has been going up and we got new updated projections and so we included those. And then it only went to 26, 27, so we just carried that number over to 27, 28. The water, we removed $83,000 worth of user charges the first 3 months because I had all of these. And they're at the new rate or the projected rate, the imposed rate. And we removed a side by side from the water that was taken out at the budget workshop. We removed a water impact fee. I don't know if you remember, but there was a deficit when we brought the budget in the water impact fees. So we added the cash back to the water impact fee and then removed it from the water enterprise fund. And then for the wastewater, did a similar thing, took out 3 months worth of user charges. So that we're projecting that if the increase happens according to the water wastewater rate study, that it wouldn't start until September. So that's why the 30%.
So in the general fund, does that include like, measure R, the utility tax, measure P, like all those other sources of revenue? You mentioned impact fees, that's what triggered the question.
I'm sorry, the general fund
So
revenue.
the utility tax measure R, I think it is going up. The last time we had a read of, has been David Kelly, the city manager, about 3 years ago. And since then, I believe the measure or the utility tax or measure R revenue should be trending up quite high, because back then they were, and we haven't heard about 2 or 3 years of that.
Mm. Can I come back to that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
But I will, like, does the general fund include all that income?
The general fund does.
Measure P, measure R.
Yes,
Utility.
yes, it does. Okay, so these are the donations and contributions that are included in the 26-27, 27-28 budget. We have homeless services, and these were all in the budget when we brought it. The only change that was made was $993 to the chamber. The chamber's not even on there. These contributions are included.
We need to add the
I
chamber.
need to add the chamber. The
Yes,
chamber's
I was just gonna say, the chamber. Okay, I don't see the
So
chamber up there.
But it should be,
Yes,
yes. The other donations and contributions that were requested but are not included are the Performing Arts Center is requesting 25,000. Citrus Fair is requesting 25,550. The History Center is requesting an additional 10,000. The Senior Center is requesting an additional 25,000. And then the Cloverdale Food Pantry, we just received a request for 10,000.
my question on that is, how did those come up right there? Just out of the blue after a workshop, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're starting to get, everybody's throwing hands out, like for some reason Cloverdale's got a huge bunch of money and they're gonna start pouring it into everything.
Mhm.
Do we know how those came up, or?
They were emails that were sent specifically
Okay.
to Kevin. The senior center did request the funds before the
Yeah.
workshop, but we did not include the additional, just what we normally, which is
Right.
15. And the history center as well, we typically
Go
do,
back.
thank you,
We got so 5.
5, and they're asking for 15.
Who's that?
The history
History Center, okay. The Senior Center, we normally do 15 for them annually, and what was their new ask?
They're asking for 40.
Okay,
So if we approved all of these asks, it would be an additional 95 or 105 over the 2.
what does that do to us?
So for every $100,000, it reduces our general fund reserve balance by 1%. General, I mean, those are general numbers that.
Gotcha. I'm a little confused on, we're still in talks with Cloverdale Performing Arts Center. There's gotta be a lot more information from these right here before we start stroking checks, for lack of better terms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're in negotiations with people, we can't fulfill an ask until we have absolutely every bit of money we need. Or every bit of information to possibly give money. And then the other one that I'm a little confused on too is at the budget workshop who sat there, Cloverdale Food Pantry came up, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but said Kiwanis has this under control, we're gonna continue doing that. That's why I'm not clear on, we're gonna continue doing, Kiwanis got it under control, nobody there has the information, whatever the proper wording was when this gets analyzed later. But the bottom line is that was not asked for at the thing, and all of a sudden now they are, okay.
I think, what I recall from the budget workshop was that, the ones that were in the budget, we're gonna stay there, and then these additional ones would be looked at a later date.
Yes.
brought back and requested the.
So, yeah, I mean, these can go to the consensus, obviously, the council. They
Yeah.
can, but I'm gonna be asking, like I just said, I'm gonna need some more information for the food pantry. I know the senior center, I've talked to the person that runs the senior center and I know what they do. You know what I mean? There's some, that this definitely needs to go to council, but it's gonna be scrutinized on the council. Thanks, Suzie.
I'll say really quickly on CPAC, we do have tentative agreements with them as far as the contract goes, but the writing's still being drafted by our
Right.
attorney. And need to be approved by both their board and council.
Correct.
Where it's all said, so they are tentative agreements as far as the financial component, that has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, this
Gotcha.
is additional to that. So other considerations, that the budget does not include, but should include, because I forgot to put them in. West Hills annexation consultant for $90,000 and the barrier for the streets event for 130.
So just real quick background, these were things that were discussed at the workshop and they seem to have support and we were gonna bring back more
Yeah.
specific things in amended budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back on track now. I get it.
Not included in the budget, but discussed at the workshop was a Clark Park restroom. I don't know what the dollar amount is, so these will be coming back.
Gotcha.
An administrative assistant, we talked about that. Either one full-time, two part-time, and I think we even talked about maybe three harder times. An adjustment to council members' wages and benefits. The proposed budget does not include any additional contributions for cost of living, any wage adjustments or any other employee compensation. The city is currently, well, it was at 24.9, but after I take that 90,000, it's gonna be back to 4.9. So we'll be at a 24.9 unrestricted general fund balance, and generally every $100,000 in expenditures will reduce the fund balance by 1%.
Adjustments to wages, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a budget must be approved by June 30th. Without the adopted, the city would not have the spending authority, beginning July 1st. And then why the budget adoption is critical is that no formal spending authority on July 1st. Delays to essential services purchasing contracts, staffing decisions, all of that would be on hold until we do. All public works and capital projects would be paused until we have a budget. I mean, you could kind of read through it. Vendor contracts, employees and partner payments would be or could be delayed, not necessarily. Grant funding and compliance risks may increase and reduce public confidence.
Gotcha.
Obviously.
So that
I've
answers that.
never had a budget that didn't pass before July 1st, and I certainly would not recommend that.
So are you aligning going forward, public works, the water enterprise, the wastewater enterprise, you're gonna align that with 2-year budgeting and increases versus 5-year? And why are we fixed on the 5-year? I guess we can come to that.
So, yeah, we can when we talk about the water and wastewater, but from my perspective, we pay quite a bit of money for a consultant to do that. And if we have to do it every 2 years, it more than doubles the cost as opposed to doing it every 5 years.
So
But
making our decisions based on paying a consultant, that's what I heard.
that's one of the reasons. That would be one of my,
Well, we're gonna have, let's talk into that item.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's what I was asking, it said public works, and I wasn't sure if that just meant roads and parks or.
oh, that is.
Everything.
All of the
That-
above, I think, on that, yeah.
All right.
So the staff recommendation obviously is that the council does adopt, and I mean, you can make changes, you can say, hey, I want these added or this taken out. And we can bring it back on consent to adopt.
And we can bring back also if some things that were on that list can come back for the 27, 28. Correct?
They can come back.
Like
at
we
any
do,
time.
amendments, like
Okay.
we kind of agreed on at the workshop is, hey, there's some things we want to get in there, but let's table those until we come up, then we can obviously do an amendment up to and approve later, okay?
Yeah, so that's what we're planning on doing
Yeah.
tomorrow night, unless there's something would you like to see it in
Yeah.
addition?
Yeah.
And, yeah, this will be my presentation tomorrow night. If there's something else that you'd like to see, this is a great opportunity to do that.
I'm just gonna be honest, I'm looking to lower council pay.
Yeah.
That's one thing I wanna look at. I
Yeah.
Also,
We
go ahead.
we put a list of things that were talked about at the workshop and that we're gonna bring back. So I don't know if that one was on there.
I think it was.
It's on there.
Yeah,
It's on there, okay.
yeah. But it's not, I haven't taken anything out of the budget.
Okay.
But it's up for
And I
discussion.
agree with Vice Mayor on that one. That's kind of got brought up and that seemed to have almost a 4-to-1 support at the workshop right there. So obviously.
Everything else is gonna have to be in, and I mean, like normal,
Mhm.
looking at, the fun stuff with the annexation, your barriers for the chief, like he's talking about, the admin assist and all that, that's all gonna be it.
Yeah.
And adjustments, which
Yeah.
we can figure out once we see where our general fund is and our percentages are, but we have to maintain. 25 is a minimum, I'm thinking 35 to 40 is where I like it to be, and $200,000 deficit is great, that's a zero to me, we said that for 6 years. 250, 300,000 in the deficit is the same as a zero on a budget. If we go any more than that, I'm gonna be looking for ways to cut, and I know we're going to, because we haven't done any raises for
Yeah.
people and cost of living adjustments, so.
That's the end of my budget presentation, so.
Alrighty, so we'll see it tomorrow.
Yes,
And that's when the fireworks can begin, huh?
yes.
Alrighty.
And now if you want, we can go back to
Yeah.
Mark Hildebrand is.
Yes, Mr. Hildebrand, sorry if you're on here still. Let's move back to item B1 and we'll go through the, Kozlowski, I believe, has some comments, but let's go through and let him take over from here. So on there,
So
Mike, is Hildebrand on there?
He was.
Yeah, it's like 1 second. To note, Mr. Kozlowski does have a public comment, a written one that's in the packet under item 2. For item 1, was there any attachments for that one? We did have that.
what did you post?
There's the water wastewater rates.
Like 5 minutes ago.
Oh,
Sorry, 1 second, we lost our agenda. In the future, I think I'm gonna go back to presenting from my office, because it makes all this significantly quicker. Mr. Hildebrand on. Rejoining as a panelist, he will be able to turn his camera on and speak with us if you'd like. And-
Okay, great. I'm in.
Is that-
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
I think so.
Apologies for the technical difficulties earlier. New computer and I forgot I didn't have Zoom uploaded, so I was scrambling. Sorry. Okay, so I'm not totally clear on how we want to manage this conversation. You know, I have a PowerPoint that I can share with you that we were planning on sharing with the council on later in June. We can go through that presentation, or I can just take your questions, however you'd like to do it.
Maybe we start with your PowerPoint. I don't know if we need to do all of it, but
Okay.
I don't,
what do you want an overview or how do you just whatever you guys?
Okay.
want to do?
I'll show the PowerPoint. I'm going to go really quickly because I know you guys have limited time, and I encourage you to slow me down if there's anything that I'm zooming through that you want me to talk about in more detail. So let's see, share this screen. Okay, can you see that?
not yet.
They're not seeing it.
Still can't see it?
Now typically, if you have that little green share icon.
Yeah, let me try again.
Like that.
Share
select your document,
Tires.
and then it'll highlight in green whatever you're sharing.
It's on our.
There it is.
Oh, there.
So
Now we see
There.
it.
Now we're good?
Yeah, it's small, but it's there.
Okay. I made it as big as I could,
Okay.
I think. Okay, so the agenda is simply to go through the rate setting process, and then I go through the water utility, then the wastewater utility, and then talk about the schedule. So when we set rates, there's three different steps. These are the three steps: revenue requirements, cost of service, and rate design. Revenue requirements is basically a financial plan where we look at all the money that's currently going in and money that's going out, and we make forecasts over the next 10 years or what we think costs are going to do, both operating costs and capital expending. This is where we really look at the capital spending plan and come up with a plan for how much we want to spend and whether we want to issue debt. So then that basically allows us to identify how much rate revenue we need from the rate customers, rate paying customers. So once we've identified how much rate revenue we need, we can move on to cost of service, which is looking at different types of customers, whether they're single family, multifamily, commercial, etc., to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share of costs based on the number of accounts, the amount of water they're using, the amount of wastewater they're producing, those types of metrics. And then once we've split up the cost amongst the ratepayers, then the rate design is the part where we decide what the bill is going to look like. So this is mostly hinging on how much we want to recover through fixed revenue versus variable revenue. So how much of the bill customers can control with their water usage and how much is going to be fixed. In terms of legal requirements, the applicable law is called Proposition 218. 218 is a pretty simple law. It basically says that you can't charge more than the cost of providing service. There's a lot of nuance within that, but the guiding principle is very straightforward. You can't generate a profit, and so you can't charge more for utility services and then say transfer it to a different department. And you also can't charge one group of customers more in the interest of having another group of customers pay less. So you can't subsidize between customer classes. And then there's also Prop 218 also talks about the notification period. So you have the authority to raise rates, but you do have to go through a notification period and hold a public hearing and give your ratepayers an opportunity to protest against the rates. And if more than 50% of your ratepayers come out and protest against the rates, then you can't by law increase the rates. Quick little survey here. This is for the combined bill. So blue represents the water bill and brown is the wastewater bill. And you can see that with your combined bill up and down the 101 corridor, generally speaking, you're towards the bottom in terms of costs. We don't set rates based on surveys. That would be against, you can't do that legally. But it's still an interesting data point just to let people know where you stand in terms of efficiencies and how you stack up against other utilities. So it is helpful for folks to understand that Cloverdale is amongst the lowest cost providers for water and wastewater in the region. Jumping into a water financial plan. Here's a quick snapshot of revenues. The point of this slide is simply to show that the vast majority of revenue comes from rate revenues from customers. There is a little bit of tax, ad valorem tax that comes in and some other miscellaneous revenues like interest earnings, but it's mostly the rate revenue for water. And then on the other side of the coin, if we're just talking about operating and debt service, so this slide doesn't show the capital spending, but it does show the operating and debt service. And you can see how that's split up with about 20% of the cost being for debt service, 41% for your personnel costs, and then the rest for miscellaneous operating costs.
But Mark, I noticed that almost 40% of the water enterprise budget goes to that O&A and debt service. Is that debt service primarily for the debt financing that was done for solar panels and stuff?
That is one of the larger debt issues you have on the books now, yes.
Okay, and is it safe to say that you shouldn't be basing reserves on basically interest payments? Should any reserves that you're allocating for water enterprise be based on staffing and potential projects and stuff?
Cash reserves?
Well, there's something called reserves where there's a 25%. And hopefully the 25% is not based on this huge interest payment piece of the pie or the O and M.
He's talking general fund reserves.
I do have I have a slide that talks specifically about the recommended reserve levels.
Because there's reserve levels for the water department and the wastewater department, correct?
Right, yeah, yeah, and we do have I have a slide that addresses the recommended reserve levels. That's a separate slide. So maybe when I get to that slide, let's circle back and see if that answers your question. So I have a few slides here just to dedicated. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're good, Mark, keep going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just have a few slides here dedicated to talking about the capital spending, because really it's the capital spending that's driving the need for the rate increases. So this is just a placeholder here where Derek would come in and talk about the capital program. And he would talk about these highlights, these specific projects that are listed here, from capacity studies to the SCADA expansion, et cetera. I won't read through all of these. But I think this is a pretty big part of the focus for this rate study, both because the last time we did a rate study 5 years ago, the big, driving force was capital spending. And it continues to be the same story, and we continue to need higher rate increases in order to increase that capital spending. And there were quite a few comments that were made during the last meeting, both from council and the public, about, asking questions about the timing of the capital spending and, why certain projects hadn't been delivered yet. What we will see is that the current status of the reserves for the utilities is that the reserves are quite high. They're higher than we had anticipated them being, and that's for the exact reason that some of the capital projects that were planned previously haven't been delivered yet. That being said, all those projects are still in the queue. They're still going to need to be spent, and we've also identified additional projects that need to be added to the queue. And so all those things are driving the need for higher rates in order to make sure we can deliver that capital program.
The market rate study, the higher rates that we paid in aggregate, roughly 76% double-digit rate increases over the 5-year window, have contributed to more than $10 million sitting in the bank, hopefully generating a lot of interest. Since there has not been a history of completing projects, why would you now advocate, knowing that financial situation? Why would you advocate further rate increases and not keeping it level or decrease, especially in the case of the wastewater department? That seems to be financially makes sense as part of any study.
The city's engineering department is confident that they can deliver on those projects going forward.
That's what you said 5 years ago, because I was here, I've looked at your old rate study, your new rate study, and the rates that we've been paying, and I've been paying, suggest that we're taking in way more than we're spending. Nice to say going forward we'll do it, but there is no track history on delivering the value for the residents of Cloverdale so they can have higher quality water, making sure the fire extinguishers have the right force in the event of a fire, making sure we have firefighters that have plenty of water in the event of something happening. That's where my head's at.
Derek, do you mind if I ask you to update us on some of these projects that we have going on, number one? And then what you're going to be updating and doing with Measure TD, if there's any money from this that's going to be used in that. So where that money is going to
We're
go.
not currently planning on overlapping DD money into the water enterprise projects. Some of them, street projects are overlapping, obviously, the water enterprise on paper. But we are moving forward with some historic projects, obviously, the South Crest or the Cherry Tank. We're getting Ritter Tank reline. We're doing multiple preemptive replacements. We're gonna go hopefully into the Tarmy track and put a bunch of piping there.
They're gonna update on getting the solar all up and operational.
Solar's all up and operational on both sides.
So it's been, that's one of the things I was gonna ask on the debt service. Percentage on that pie chart should be going down on the solar, because the solar's only been on for 3 weeks or so.
Well, when I inquired about that, I was told that it'd be a significant reduction in your budget requests for both wastewater
And
and.
water,
and water.
water is gonna be very minimal. Wastewater, we're gonna see what the offset is. And then the nearest, the largest budget adjustment would be the mid-year budget adjustment. But I'll update everybody on what we're seeing throughout that time period. It's not gonna just be, no notification, then all of there's a budget adjustment, the total amount. You guys will know slightly.
And both wells are finished.
Both wells are drilled, cased,
Is that
deviated and all that. 7 and 8, yeah.
Yeah.
They're drilled, they're not.
But even though they went slower than what we had anticipated or wanted,
They're not,
they are coming to fruition.
they're not supplying water into our system currently.
But like SCADA, the tanks, they're moving forward.
Yeah.
And this money is for that.
Yes,
Any raises are in the fees are for what?
for the CIP project list that we put for tanks, Ritter tanks. South Crest tank, or the Cherry Creek tanks are. Some preemptive fixing, there's, a lot of pipe replacements throughout the system. We can see just by that single break that we had on the boulevard, the amount of capital it takes to just fix one of these emergency breaks is immense.
Would you say that? When are we gonna emerge from the reactive fixes, which cost a lot, to proactively replace identified aging and old water lines or sewer lines? Because as part of a rate increase.
When we have a
if
big
we-
budget.
Yeah,
Because we
design-
charge
but if
people
we
ahead of
design the
time,
budget
money
based on
spent.
always being an emergency. We're not firefighters, hopefully in public works, that's what we get the firefighters for that.
Yeah, I
Or the
would,
police.
I would like to get some of these projects finished in behind us. I can't give you a specific timeline of when it becomes a proactive budget as opposed to a reactive budget.
But as long as we're shooting for that.
That's
If we're always reactive, it's gonna cost a
Yeah.
fortune.
Yeah, I'm shooting to get these projects out. Why we have the budget, why we can't, and then start moving towards a proactive budgeting process.
So as you demonstrate that, I think unlike his predecessor was Mark Rankin, that team, or maybe it's the same team, I don't know, but that leadership did not make it happen. Mark Kelly did not make it happen. And so we're banking on you. David Kelly, so I get it wrong, so we're banking on you and this gentleman right here, Kevin, to move these projects forward,
Yeah.
because otherwise,
Right,
you're asking for another double-digit rate increase, you're asking for another 49%, I think, over 5 years, on top of the 76%.
and Rob, on the last meeting that I was, I'm not gonna apologize, I was gone, I didn't make the last meeting, but when we did talk about this previous, one of the hot items for both myself and most of the council was, hey, you're right. David Kelly did kick a lot of stuff down the road, you know what I mean? Kevin has taken over from there, Todd and I have jumped in,
Yeah.
and with Derek's help, hey, this is crucial, let's get the solar going. These guys put a lot of work into getting solar going, so we are picking them off. We agree with you 100% on that, we're picking off SCADA, we're picking off these CIPs that we need to do to get to that point, but it's gonna take some time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's a lot of things that there was money wasted and things we couldn't control, like the
Right.
generator.
Yeah.
The generator rental is something
I
that
didn't bring that up because you guys.
I-
seem to be over that.
Yeah,
we're riding the rented mule right now.
Yeah. yeah,
But these guys are here to
Yeah, no, I,
get stuff done.
yeah, I'm not picked on these two guys.
No, that's what we're trying to do, and
Yeah,
but
what I-
there has been a steady difference.
We
And but
do.
it takes the money to do these projects and have it on hand. You can't be like reactive and say, hey, we wanna fix the tank. Now we gotta jump you 40% for the next 3 to 5 years. So
Yeah.
We will.
you steady and follow what the state's doing. We're still the third lowest in the area, not even Stark County, in that whole entire region.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
Wastewater, we're really low. Water, we're actually up near Santa Rosa.
How much do you, how much more reporting do you do per week now versus 5 years ago?
How many more hours a week?
How many more hours mandated basically as a take?
Probably like 25 hours.
Okay, so it's basically a body.
Yeah.
Per
I
week.
mean, we were in the mid 6 figures annually for supplemental reporting that we.
It's been added in the past few years to your workload because of this.
Yeah, that we have to hire out just because it's feasibly impossible for us to do.
That's the unanticipated stuff, Rob, that we don't normally talk
We did have to
about.
hire a couple guys too, because it wasn't feasible to have just 2 people.
And why I've been challenging Mark, bear with me, Mark.
No problem.
In the past, you had a great chart that listed all the WAs and all the projects we're getting done. And I fear maybe you're not listing those anymore because there's been too many challenges. For example, WA 61 this year calls out for another almost $300,000 in studies over this budget cycle. Not the 5-year cycle, but this budget cycle. So I think there's like almost 295,000 in WA 61. Why more studies? One question. The other thing, we were told that the SCADA work that we did, they're actually up there.
Yes, the domestic.
Yes, the
supply.
SCADA work that we did, would be all ready to go, yet there's another 354,000 in more SCADA spending that are being done, I guess, this year or next year. It seems a lot. The well replacement is now stuck here, so basically, as you pointed out, it's 3 years late, it should have been done. But the money's in the bank account, so we don't need a rate increase for that project that's already funded. It's in, the money's in the bank, pay as you go is how I look at it. And then the thing that concerns me, it says various projects not defined, it's $2.228 million. In the past, you would say, oh, that's for Ritter, that's for the chlorine tank, that's for whatever, so. There's not as much detail, which is disappointing as a member of the public seeing what's being done or not done. So I'm not sure if you have it or if that's not going to be presented.
Can we explain some of the studies?
The well studies for, continued water use, but one of them, is the money we got.
So for the storage?
Yeah, for the storage.
Yeah.
And then assess alternate sources.
Rob, one of the studies is something that we had to do. We were working with the county, with Snowwater and with the state, with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Chuck Bonham.
Yeah.
He's the guy that's appointed through Governor Newsom to work on water. When we have our issues with the Potter Valley project, lack of water that we might be anticipating, or we are anticipating what might have happened, we're looking for alternative sources. One of them that we came up with is buying water that exists in Lake Mendocino. We'd be the first people to, that would be our storage tank there.
The lake would be the tank.
Correct.
Yes.
But they mandated us to have this assessment done of our water supply.
Sure.
That's where that comes
So it would
from.
be that source of capacities there. And then new domestic well studies, I am still wanting to, diversify our water resources away from surface water or groundwater under the influence of surface water. I'd really like to see us produce groundwater in certain areas for irrigation uses. If we do it on the western side of the city, the piping costs would be immensely less than piping something from the water plant. And then the treatment is almost non-existent, a UV and a filtration. So that's cheaper water to supply for non-potable uses. I think that's a good long-term fix.
And that's something we were also working with Sonoma Water with to create this, and we've brought in the geologists that they kind of volunteered their time and their paperwork that they've already done. So we've looked at a couple areas, but now we have to actually invest into that.
And it's too
What that does is, if there's no water, that saves us a lot of water money.
Right.
We can water fields and things like that with this and have it in that area.
So it's too expensive to drill a little hole in the lake, so we have a wall over here and pull the water out of the lake.
That's $1 billion. That's why Sonoma Water came up with about a month and a half ago.
Cheap to drill the hole,
Yeah.
the pipe it down here, expensive water.
And they,
Just created a surface.
Sonoma Water said it'd be about $1 billion to get a pipe to Asti, and then we have to create a pumping station from there to ship it up to us above us, just to get back
Actually been
down.
discussed, what, 50 years ago or whatever?
Yeah, well,
Longer.
the late 80s is when that one came up. So
The SCADA expansion, we did some SCADA work under some grant monies to identify future needs for the remote sites to come into the SCADA plant. That's been a big thing. The water plant has needed SCADA upgrades for 20 years probably. And so we're slowly chipping away at that. But we have a 900 megahertz radio system that we'd like to move away from. And the technical integration for that is extremely costly to get that to all the way back to the plant. So that's what these SCADA upgrades
So
and
what-
expansions.
The last rate increases, again, the money's in the bank to do that. Because there was, if you look at Mark Hildebrand's previous, exact same name of slide, you'll see
Yeah.
it. It says SCADA has a lot more money in there for SCADA, so we don't have that money in the bank already, so why rate increase? I mean, that's a small number compared to other things.
Right.
If you go through all of these, which I've done comparing to the past list,
We have done quite a bit of reactive SCADA improvements.
is that
Um,
word?
Unfortunately, that's just how it is when you're operating on an extremely old, outdated system.
This is the can that's been kicked for 60
Yep,
years,
yep.
or more. You could, yeah, if you think about it, or more.
Well, we are positioning
frustrating.
ourselves to,
Does it make sense to put on this one, which ones are grant funded? You could just do
well,
But could this not be highlighted showing money in the bank kind of thing? This would help, I think, everybody, because this is just another. It's like, it's like the same list, but it's add 5 years and you got it. Now, the only thing that's not broken out is that whole bottom line.
the
there.
tanks.
Yeah, they used to have individual projects listed there. And,
Uh,
I mean,
we could list the projects.
just like you did 5 years ago, because I don't know what they are anymore. Because
I mean, the,
time's finished.
We have a
Backup, the
point,
backup.
no, there's no backup.
Yeah, but that one was supposed to be done in 2025,
Mhm.
or the previous sheet.
Yeah.
Right, what that tells me, you've been collecting money, that should be in the bank, there's over 10 million in the bank, so.
There's not, okay, sorry.
7
There's not, yeah, there's not over 10.
No,
There's,
there's
we
wastewater,
started out with 7. This year we're spending $1 million, on capital projects. And then,
what interest rate you getting on 7 million?
I mean, this graph helps explain, you're absolutely right, that money is in the bank. And you have well above your target reserves currently in the bank. This green line shows where your reserves are currently, and the lines below it show what your reserve targets are. So you're right that the money is in the bank and it will continue to be in the bank, but at this level of capital spending, which you can see in the light blue up here, this portion of so this graph shows a cash flow over the next 10 years. The background in green is the revenue. So the green down at the bottom is miscellaneous revenue. The light green in the middle is your rate revenue currently with existing rates, and the dark green shows the additional revenue that you get with the proposed rate increases. And in the foreground, the columns show expending, right? So the dark blue is your operating expense. The hash blue is your debt service, which, to answer your question, the debt service will start to fall off a little bit in 2033 is when one of your debts are paid off. And then the light blue is your capital spending. So you can see that anytime the columns are higher than the background, that's a deficit year where you're pulling down in your reserves. And that's going to happen over the next 5-6 years. Your spending is going to be higher than your revenue, and you're going to be drawing down on your reserves. You can see the reserves dropping all the way until 2033, where you finally level off. So the reason that you have these rate increases is because if you don't do these rate increases now, and you do deliver this capital spending, you're going to be below your minimum reserve levels when out in 2033. So this is long-term planning. We're not going to wait. We're not going to put, we're not recommending that you don't do any rate increases now just because you have reserves in the bank, because what that does is it sets you up for a situation where these reserves drop much more precipitously, and then all of a sudden 2029, 2030, you're out of money, and then you have to spike rates by 20, 30, 40% in order to right the ship. So I understand the concern that, why raise rates when we have money in the bank and we need to deliver these projects. I think the focus needs to be on, if we, believe and we understand that that's what the capital needs are and that the capital program will get delivered, then we want to look at it on a long-term basis and make the adjustments that we need to now, so that we don't make them at the last second when we run out of money.
So you're on the page that no project will be delayed and deferred. That's on the list that will see the expanded list. Is that correct? That's why you're advocating for 7% in water?
We'll never say a project will not be delayed.
I mean,
Welcome to government. Welcome to government. I will guarantee one will be at least.
So, but that was my point at the
Yeah.
budget meeting, is there any reason to have no rate increase for 1 year? Demonstrate that, success is happening, meaning you got the backup chlorine tank, you got the wells finished and all that, and the bank accounts being drawn down. Meanwhile, you're making interest rates while the money's in there. And then in year 2 or year 3 of this study, then look at the 3% or 4% or 5% number.
So if you do that, then that's gonna drop drastically, and we do no projects from 2030 until 2035. Well, we build it back up and we have spike increases, now you and you're saying triple digit increases of signs all over town.
No, I don't, I.
Not being rude, I'm just, you know.
No, I don't, I hear that, but I don't believe that will happen. If we look at, let's get some progress in the first couple of years here. Because we expected progress over the last 5 years, and again, this is not.
And there is progress. It's a lot of paperwork.
Not the okay, let's say not the ambitious. And then people went ahead and found, grant money and stuff and used up city resources on low priority projects. And we've had this discussion, why a brand new water meter, right, for a brand new home, we moved here and basically got a brand new home, we had the water department out looking at, you know, making sure the fire guys were happy with the pressure and all that, so there was a lot of what I would say nice to do projects that were done, and that tied up city resources, so we couldn't even get to these bigger projects. It's my
I will disagree,
Yeah,
because I had
100%.
different priorities, but that I was one of 5.
right.
Okay, and I wasn't the city manager at the time.
Right.
So I would agree on some of that, not all of it obviously, but some of it I would absolutely agree. There's the needs and the wants. We do. And we haven't focused on the needs for a long time with the shiny bright objects.
Yeah, because if the focus is
So-
on the residents, it's clean water,
What we've been
reliable
doing-
water, available water.
As we've
Correct.
been able to, is as we've gotten a better foothold on our own budget. Is be able to do these things where they're getting things done, we're saying, no, look at, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, I mean. You heard me in the budget meeting and I feel sorry and I apologized to Derek later because I was kind of an ass. When I said, look, you're not getting shit done, you need to get shit done,
Right.
you know,
And
and
by the way, like you said at one of the meetings, you weren't at that one, but there was kudos to the team in the water department for fixing that rate, which was fantastic. But that has got to come fortune compared to, is that not one of the water mains or the?
but you have to have millions and millions in the bank per year on top of everything to be able to be close.
That's-
And that's where these things, once you get caught up, it's just gonna take our lifetime.
Right.
To start back over and do it again.
Possibly. Well, I remember, yes, the signs were protesting, and they
Right.
didn't want the 17% increase in water
Right.
loan, it ended up being 12, and now we got. It looks like a nice sized bank account. And.
Only because they're not finished, they will be,
Not finished.
that will
We're
go
not
away,
starting.
that will go away.
When they start getting picked up, that will be our way.
But remember, the thing that we're not addressing is, like, we don't keep track of the number of meters. I was told we budget based on dollars, not on the number of meters. So if we're adding on another 250 meters, and I don't know, there's, all these projects going on, there's ASTI, there's the new apartments, there's Baumgartner, within the 2-year budget cycle.
Yeah.
Or the first 2 years of the 5-year water rate study. Do we not have brand new revenue at already these higher double-digit rated increases? They're gonna start at the higher number, right? So how many new meters are coming in that would provide that additional revenue as opposed to another?
Well, and when we figure that out, if that comes in to fruition and the money's showing in revenue, then we have a.
Which is my point, so why not do a 1 or 2 year? We're trying to catch up on projects, we're trying to nail down the right revenue run rate with existing and new meters coming online.
Because there's two different things here, you're saying you want us to be proactive and do things, but then you want us to be reactive with the money.
Proactive based on what we've already identified, but not, react, like not, what I'm saying is don't be reactive as a condition of doing business. We want to, Derek's point, move forward so that we can become proactive. That will happen as you do stuff, but it doesn't mean you have to do stuff by jacking up rates.
It just seems like if it's lower now, it's gonna be higher later.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if this makes sense, but could Mark do a couple scenarios, maybe a lower increase and then do his graphs and show all that?
Mark, you're including proposed developments coming online in this in the study?
The numbers do not include capacity charges or growth related projects. That's a separate, that's treated as a separate fund.
Impact fees.
No, not just impact fees.
No, you're saying.
No,
he's saying it's-
Additional revenue. Yeah.
More people buying water,
Yeah.
and then we promote water usage for outdoor and.
Well.
We're not gonna have that.
Yeah, well, that's against the law.
Yeah.
What, I can't water my lawns?
No, yeah, you can, just.
Lawns,
Plural?
lawn, so we don't have lawn, I got one yard.
Would you like me to, well, just to move on here, just to
Or we're gonna be able to
recap.
look at, with the, Mark, you're gonna be able to look at, does the study not include over the 5-year window that we're adding 50 to 100 meters a year kind of thing, or? And why wouldn't it?
Oh, you mean the fact that your customer base is growing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I do account for the fact that your customer base is growing. I just not the math doesn't include the capacity charge revenue that you get from developers or the cost of the development, growth related projects that are paid for by development. But I do have a growth assumption that you're going to have more customers coming online, which helps offset some of the needed rate increases.
What is the growth percentage?
The growth percentage, I'll have to, let me pull that up really quick here.
There's a lot of high density, which does use a lot less water. So.
That's that per capita discussion.
Yeah. No, we went on that one, per capita.
Yeah. Also, for the next,
But also there's less infrastructure to let everyone packed into one structure, right?
Not necessarily, because we still bring it to the same place.
Yeah.
It's just we know multifamily uses a lot less water, so it is more people using water, but it's not as much as a single family. But it sounds like Mark.
Yeah, he bakes in a percentage of population growth, includes that.
I didn't see that in any of his notes or.
Do you have a slide that addresses that, Mark, or?
No, I don't have it in the PowerPoint. It's in the report. It's a 0.5% per year is the assumption.
How many meters is that?
0.5% per year would be.
A master meter, or is it individual? Because it
That's
doesn't
good.
matter. It's the same amount of
I think
water.
master.
It's the same amount.
Right.
like 15, right, Mark?
Let me see. I think, yeah, that sounds about right.
Since 45.
Oh.
0.5% of
Yeah, it's 17 meters per year.
17.
Cause it's the number meter.
Yeah, that
Oh,
probably needs to
40,
be.
45 people.
Yeah,
So divide that by 3.
Is Austin Road just 1 meter? Maybe meter's not the way to look at it, but.
Yeah, it's.
Well, our house has 1 meter, right?
But some of these apartments have 1 meter too. There's several units in there.
Is that because everyone gets not free water? It's included in the
Right,
rates.
sub
Then they have an HOA that.
sub meters that are
everything
somehow charged.
Could you project out, with a full? Could you project out with a 2% for the first 2 years and then back to your 0.5?
So change the assumption to 2% for this year and next year, and then 0.5% after that.
Yeah,
do you know that for sure? That that's gonna happen?
well, I mean, we know how many,
Occupancy permits.
yeah, it's probably more than 2%.
It's hard to guess how much development's gonna come.
Right, well, we know what we're gonna get online next year.
Yeah.
I just know that we have $7.5 million budgeted in the next 2 years for water.
And wastewater, you have number 2, right?
Just
Well,
water.
But we are planning on seeing a continued.
Mark, is there a way to,
And the actual usage revenue.
is there a way to say we're not gonna do 7% this year and how that affects future years or?
Yeah, I can run any number of scenarios if that's how you'd like to spend our time right now.
That makes sense. I mean, I don't know for the actual meeting. I don't know, is that something you want to see, Rob?
No, or just I think we should have the data to look at some point, or the city council should.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that for fiscal 27 and 28, 7%, which is, next year and the year after that, the 2022 study had projected that we would be doing 7% increases just as we're proposing. The only thing that's changed is that for 29, 30, and 31, those have bumped up to 7%, and we had previously hoped that it would dial back down to 3%. And that's because, again, the number of projects has identified capital projects has increased. There's also, well, I have a slide that speaks to it, but there's been less water sales than there's a 19% decrease in water usage, which results in an annual shortfall of about $250,000 that wasn't anticipated in 2020. So that there's nothing you can do about that. You have to raise rates when water usage goes down. And then operating costs are 2% higher than we had previously forecasted. We do our best to forecast and to anticipate what inflation is going to look like, and we were off by about 2%, largely driven by an overhead allocation due to increase in insurance costs. And then, as we've talked about quite a bit, the capital spending is $3.5 million higher than what we had projected between 2022 and 2032. So about $360,000 per year higher than we had anticipated.
First line is what hurts us.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's no, that wasn't associated with drought, so there's no drought surcharge on there. It's just people using less water.
It's all those incentive programs and everything else that go along, and
It's a double.
fixing their pipes, I mean,
Right.
taking out their lawns and everything else that goes along with this.
So with the work that was done on the leak management, with the smart meters that can address it, how many customers were you able to add on because they weren't paying for water? Because that was one of the issues years ago, right, Kevin? There were some customers that weren't paying because they had broken meters, so we fixed the meters now. You got revenue from that. You also got a lot of leaks. You got revenue now because the leaks are fixed. So you'd think there'd be some level of increase.
Well, and we expected that. I think you talked about,
Yeah.
Councilmember Bagby at the time, talking about what was the percentage you had said, or how much you said?
Oh,
There was a number you threw, like 700,000 or something,
Yeah.
dollars. We didn't see
we
that.
never
but
saw that.
We never saw what was projected.
So the conservation.
Conservations came in, but it didn't have as much as we had
Right.
anticipated.
So to that point, Mark, have you thought about presenting to the council or Kevin and Derek? If you lower the fixed charges and if there's less usage, but the ones that use the water raise the variable rate a little bit. So you actually have a net increase. But for those people that use less water anyways, they have a decrease in their bill. That's something else to look at, right?
So if you do that, the ones that use more water are going to cut back even more. And then you're gonna get a 20% increase on your
Right.
bill the next year. Most likely,
Yeah.
if your bill went from 300 to 700, you're gonna say, oh,
The
screw it,
bill
well, it's
went
not.
from 80 to 160, basically.
Well, mine's in the 300 range, I get it.
Yeah.
So,
That's because you
But
have
if my-
kids at that age showering.
if mine went from 300 to 500, I would say, okay, I have to cut something out.
Right.
And I would, and then that 200 goes away, everyone that's like me does that, and now we're gonna come in at a 20% increase instead of a 7.
But that's
Here's
the
the
trade-off.
trade like it's
Yeah.
one.
Hey, Mark, this is kind of off a little bit, but have you heard of any cities doing time of use metering?
Time of use metering, in order to capture the cost
You
of
mean like
of
power
peaking.
grid?
What I'm saying is the electricity costs more at a certain time, so the water
Right.
costs more. I've heard of cities, I'm not suggesting we do that. I should have just asked them in private, but.
Do that.
But,
I mean, all the ideas gotta come out.
I mean,
no, I think it's possible to do. I've heard of cities do.
Water your lawn at noon, it's great for
Yeah.
there it goes.
it.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept. I haven't heard of that specific application being done. I've heard of folks, kind of trying to go in that direction, not because of the electricity costs, because lots of that can be managed through storage, and pumping off hours into elevated tanks, But the cost of peaking, during peak hours, and the fact that your infrastructure needs to be larger to accommodate peak use. It's not really a thing in the water industry the way it is in the power industry, because power is just so much more dynamic, and the peaking is so much more of a real cost that needs to be managed on a lot more levels. It's a common practice in the electrical industry, but I haven't actually seen it applied. We've talked about it, but I've never actually seen it applied.
Thank you.
Yeah, because then we'd have to get all new meters. Again?
We'd have to be able to monitor it. Shoot yourself.
So we're gonna talk about next steps, Mark, or?
Mark, just before you do on the reserves, could you comment, you've been doing a reserve level of 25%. And you've proposed that last water study, this water study. Now, a lot of things are done on projects where you got like contingencies at 10%. You've got different like I don't know, I think, for example, we just repaid one of the roads in town. I think you had a contingency of 10% in the case there's some extra bills after the fact. Why did we choose a reserve level 25% and say not 10%? If you did a 10% reserve and you excluded reserve on the debt service and stuff, you'd be closer to like $250,000 reserve instead of $1 million reserve. Would you not?
I mean, a 10% reserve would be the lowest operating reserve I've ever heard of.
Why is that?
The lowest reserve policy I've ever heard of for operating reserve would be it's basically this one, a 3-month operating reserve, which is 25%. And it's kind of considered what your minimum reserve level would be, that gets taken seriously by rating agencies. Now, you have reserves for a few different reasons. The primary reason is to protect the enterprise financially in the event of changes in costs. But the other reason that you have reserves is because the rating agencies look very closely at your reserve policies and your practices. And that's how you get rated. And then that ends up being what you end up paying for your debt. If you have really low reserve targets and practices, you're going to be treated as a risky, lender, and you're going to end up paying higher interest rates when you borrow money.
So what's the balance as far as if your reserves are too high, then you're hamstrung, you can't do any projects?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, the problem with having too high reserves is that you could potentially, in extreme cases, be sued by people who think that you are sitting on too much money, and that you're being irresponsible with managing the money, and that you shouldn't continue to charge the rates you have with the reserves that you have. Cloverdale's no.
Oops, I lost you, Mark.
Cloverdale is no different from, what was I gonna say?
Yeah, his screen's frozen.
So usually with reserves, the school districts, everything that I've ever been around, 3 months is as minimum.
Minimum.
And you do that because it's not only just what we do, it's when the government shuts off your funding. And this had happened, and we were the only school district in the county that had enough funding, didn't have to borrow to pay people when the government didn't pay us. And I think that was 2015, if I remember correctly. And that's another reason is you have to have this for your, like you said, for financing and for anything you do on credit. You have to have it to show that you have the strength and the ability to be self-sufficient.
Did I get disconnected?
Sorry, hit back.
The reserve base number would include like almost $1 million in debt service. That has to be part of that.
Yeah.
It looks like can you guys hear me again?
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, yeah,
Payments.
We can hear you, froze there.
Yeah, then you're gonna pay 30%.
So I'm not,
You're gonna borrow money from.
pay as you go, doing debt financing.
There we go. So I'm not sure if I got cut off or if I need to finish that
You
thought.
were just saying Cloverdale and then you got cut off.
Is no different from,
Yeah, you were
Yeah,
saying 10%, you were talking about the 25%
Yeah.
reserve level.
yeah, I think a 10% reserve target would be entirely too low. It'd be very risky, and that the rating agencies respect it, and you would end up with a bad rating, credit rating, and you'd end up paying higher interest rates when you borrow money. And it just doesn't save you any money, really. It's having low reserves is not really a way of saving money. Now, if you have egregiously high reserves, then yes, I agree. That's, you're kind of sitting on too much cash. But we have a very clear plan here to draw down on the reserves over the next 5 years.
Or anything else, anybody? On this? Kevin?
Mark, what's the next steps or?
Oh, the only other thing, is there any thought to supporting the residents with the drought surcharge refund? Remember we were charged a surcharge on our water bills a couple
Say that
years
again
ago?
for me, I'm sorry.
A drought surcharge refund. So we were charged extra on our bills for, what was it, Susie, a year and a half, maybe 2 years? More in one year than the other, and that was because there was a drought declared, a state drought. So we were charged extra water, but any thought to giving that refund over the next budget cycle, over the next 2 years for residents? And why wouldn't we do that?
Well, it's something I personally have never thought of.
Remember,
Maybe we can discuss that and see if it's something that we can,
Yeah.
But
I sent a note in.
I don't want to give any credit to it until
No.
we discuss it,
Yeah.
however.
Yeah, no, tomorrow.
Increase rates and.
Because it costs us more to have the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard.
Give your refund back. Yeah, I know about it.
If I remember correctly, we were charged that, so you were charged that. That's how that worked.
Oh, the state did it to us. Yes.
From the state, what's with these curtailments?
Yeah, it was, okay, yes. They got it.
So, in terms of the impact to the rates, we are, in year one, the usage rates are going up by a bit more than the fixed charges because we are increasing the usage rates a little bit more than the fixed charges, as was mentioned. But the net impact will be the 7% increase. And you can see in year one, because of the fact that the fixed charge and the usage charge go up at different rates, different types of customers will be affected slightly differently. So you can see a low use family in year one will actually only see a 5% increase to their bill, but a high use family will see higher than 7%. If you net everybody together and look at the total impact, the average increase will be 7%, but there'll be slightly different impacts on different types of customers. But then in year two, there won't be any more changes to the structure of the rates, and so everyone will see exactly the same 7% increase. So here are the rates over the next 5 years that are being proposed. And then here's the water bill broken down into fixed and variable. So you can kind of get a sense of how other utilities charge fixed and variable. You can see that Cloverdale is very typical there in terms of fixed versus variable. They're not extreme in one regard or the other. The industry is really sort of coalescing around about 40 to 50% revenue being recovered through fixed revenue, which is pretty much where Cloverdale is. Okay, if we go to wastewater now, have very similar slides and kind of a relatively similar situation. I believe the rates are a bit lower for wastewater. So the rate revenue is similar to water, about 90% of the total revenue, and you do get some property tax, ad valorem property tax that helps that fund. There isn't as much debt service in wastewater, only about 5%, and so that ends up being a smaller piece of the pie. The reserve policies are identical, 25% operating reserve, which we call a contingency reserve, and then the replacement reserve is a capital reserve to help fund the pay-go program. And here's a list of the capital project for wastewater. I'm not sure if you guys want to go through this list as well. Hearing no comments, I'll move on.
Yeah, no, we need to go through the list right now, it's something we need to do as a council.
So here's the spending. So you can see there's been a bit more, relatively more activity for sewer for the last few years. similar large debt issue, because wastewater helped contribute to that solar panel project. But the average spending has been about 300,000 and it's going up to 900,000. So a pretty material increase in capital spending projected. And we didn't spend any time looking at this graph on the water side, but just to look on the wastewater side. In this case, if we look at the 2020 plan, if you look at the bottom, let me get my pointer out. I've been pointing all over this thing and you guys can't see my cursor. The 2020 plan back then had assumed that during this time period, it would be $6.4 million of capital spending, and that's exactly what the current plan shows. So we're right on track in terms of the total. The timing of the projects has changed a bit, as is to be expected. But the total capital spending is very similar to what we had anticipated back in 2020. And here's the graph for wastewater. So really just looking at 4% per year, every year as far as we can see, mostly driven by inflation, which has been, on the 3 to 4% range. And that's where we have it forecasted. You can see that the reserves are a bit above target currently, and that we have a very similar plan to water where we're going to be drawing down on those reserves and getting down to the reserve target level by 2031. So much steadier on the wastewater side. The capital spending didn't change as much as it did in water, and the change in water usage didn't affect wastewater revenues the way it did for water. So that's why you're seeing a steadier financial plan that's more consistent with what we had previously forecasted. The decrease in water did affect revenue somewhat, but much less than on the water side, just about $100,000 per year. And then we did see an increase in operating costs that weren't anticipated, again, driven by the increase in insurance costs from the general fund and a new position added to the wastewater treatment plant. And here are the changes to the rates, kind of all over the place in terms of the single family is going up by 2%. Multifamily is actually going down by 9% in the first year. And that's because based on some analysis, we looked at water usage data and found that on the per dwelling unit, multifamily is using significantly less water per dwelling unit. And so that's why they got a lower allocation of costs. So their rates are actually going to drop in the first year, which is good news. The non-residential fixed charges are going to be dropping, whereas their usage charges are going to increase. The only kind of bad news, as far as I'm concerned, these numbers are all fine. The 27% increase for public schools is just an unfortunate situation where you're seeing a significant. The ADA is average daily attendance, and as I think most of you are aware, you're seeing a lower attendance rate at your schools, but the water usage hasn't changed at those schools, and so we're allocating the same amount of costs because the amount of wastewater that's being produced hasn't changed, but the number of students has decreased, and so on a per student basis, the rates have to go up pretty significantly in order to be able to cover the costs. And then on the sewer side, you are currently the lowest sewer rates in the region, and you'll continue to be so for as long as I can imagine. I mean, everybody's raising their rates by at least 4%, so I don't think you're going to catch up with anyone on this graph anytime soon.
I knew it was coming. That's why I was looking at you. Oh, man. That's my favorite graph, Mark.
So here are the
But
rates for
Mark,
the
it was
next.
interesting, Susie did a nice little slide for me because I was pinging her a few times. And if there was no increase anywhere over the first couple of years, we'd be as worst case 11% reserves, 19% reserves, 22 and I think 27% reserves over the next 2 years. So no rate increase would still not
take us to the negative, but be below your 25% target.
Okay.
Except for one, yeah, maybe wastewater. Anyhow,
Okay, and so here's that combined survey again with the water and the wastewater, so you know, when you combine them together, you're still in the bottom half of this survey, which is good news. You know, it kind of helps tell the story of you know, the other thing I mentioned about these surveys is that, you know, a lot of folks thinks that it's a good thing to be at the bottom, and it's not always the case that you want to be at the bottom. Sometimes being at the bottom means that you're deferring capital spending. I've certainly had some clients who have, you know, prioritized being the cheapest rates, and the way that they got there is by deferring capital spending, and that really just sets you up for sometimes catastrophe. You know, if you really defer capital spending, then you can, you know, have low rates in the short term, but in the long run, you might end up at the top because of the kind of emergencies that it creates and the problems it creates. So it's not a competition to have the lowest rates. It's really a competition to have the steadiest rates that continue to provide reliable service.
so Mark, I saw your study you're working on with Santa Rosa, since I used to live there, and is that the current Santa Rosa rate or the one you're proposing that's going up shortly with them?
That would be the one that's all of these rates. If I have the data, these are all reflective of the rates that will be effective on July 1 coming up.
All right, because Santa Rosa is probably gonna go up then, is what you'll see, right? So,
Yeah, these are all
$116 million in debt. And
Yeah, I
we're
mean-
we're a cash cow called Craven Casino, so
Right.
we don't have either of those, so we have no debt.
we're right.
So if they were paying their fair shares, we'd be on the bottom by far.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'd be curious if there was any affordability component to this based on the income demographics of the various cities. Because you know, it impacts our folks here in town have a different income level than those in Healdsburg. And looking at where we rank from an affordability perspective, it might be an interesting thing to at least consider as far as this goes, right? I mean, if we're doing this raise, as you know, right now there's water and wastewater charges for the average home equate to about 2% of annual income, is 1.5 comparatively with other cities within the county.
Oh. What's that called, regressive tax?
No.
It's that type of deal, it's where it costs more because you make less here.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like it's
Okay, that's
more,
one, yeah. I don't know that it, you know, that it makes any sense to consider that, but you know, as the general average here in town, incomes are significantly less than other cities, maybe not all of them, but some.
So that
And
$300 a
therefore,
month,
you know, if the annualized cost is hitting you know, a family of four living on $50,000 a year, it's like, wait, what? I mean, how much of my annualized income is going to pay for basic services? And I think that may be something to at least consider in the overall picture.
how would we?
That I don't know.
It's why, because that's an easy one to prove, that you're absolutely right,
Right.
but how do you rectify that?
I don't have that answer either.
Start by knowing what it is.
Yeah, I guess just identifying the issue that I may want to consider and then.
So if you look at a lot of the things that we do here, it's about a 15%. If I remember correctly, Susan, I could be wrong, I could be completely off, about 15% lower on everything. Your average income is about 15% lower, like Santa Rosa. Our pay here is usually about 15% lower than everyone else's, and it stays moderate with that. Now, we're at the bottom, but we still have to follow state laws and policies and things that are the same. They don't care. There's no demographic
They
change.
could care less about it, exactly.
Yeah. You are colorless and blind in their eyes, and you
Yeah.
just have to pay them.
Just a quick check on affordability, best versus worst burden, right? Petaluma is the best affordability and Sebastopol's the worst, we would be the fifth, right?
In Sonoma County,
in Sonoma County.
So is that out of 9?
I've only listed 6 in the city.
Okay.
Well, actually, Sonoma's tied, so 7. I get those.
But isn't that part of the discussion about finding that right formula? If you lower the fixed charge, right, we're just having that discussion, would that help someone that's trying to scrimp and save? But I guess not, because then it goes up on the variable, they got a bigger family, maybe, and so it's, I don't know what the final line is.
That's what we're always trying to find.
Yeah, trying to find.
That's why 25% is where Susie tries to stay,
Yeah,
when you have people like me pushing for 35 to 40.
and pushing for 10.
I'm just saying, I feel really safe when we can live for 6 months without the government intruding.
Yeah.
Any other items on that? Any other comments, Rob? Anything else?
On water, I guess so it's illegal to promote water use, I don't get that. What can citizens do?
It's illegal for us to promote water use, Rob.
Yes, not me.
It's illegal for the city to promote water use, Rob.
Anybody else here? Mark, thank you very much for coming
Thanks,
back,
Mark.
and really appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. And just one last question. We have this meeting coming up on June 24th with our final recommendation. Is there any information that's missing from the presentation that you just saw that you think would help make people feel better about the recommendation?
I don't see anybody. Just our discussion, like water meter count, like the thing that bugs me is we don't know how many water meters we got. It's more about, we got a revenue and this is what we expect it to be, and we based all that just on revenue. And I just feel there's something there that if we're gonna add hundreds of meters, that the revenue's gonna go up, in spite of these other data points you did.
So Mark did say that when I do the budget, I take the revenue and I increase it by whatever percentage. But he did say that he marked up the meters by 0.5% per year. So that would be
So that's 2%.
17 meters per year.
Yeah, it's only 17. Just like you.
We have more than that, just with those other apartments coming on along Cloverdale Boulevard, there's.
Well, I thought I heard him say he would change it for this year and next year to 2% for presentation.
Oh, was that a final decision? I said I could show that. I didn't know that was a request to change the assumptions to the report.
Could you just send us the numbers
Sure.
with that 2% change in it, and then,
For 2 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, show us what's going to come on for real.
Yeah.
We could
So
look
the
at
rent.
10 years and just how many you come on.
No, you can look at what's
You can walk.
going on for sure.
Drive
We
around.
know,
Yeah.
we know what's going
I
on.
mean, I can.
I'm saying,
It's
it's just.
Small town, you can't help but see when you go to Ferber Park or something.
I mean, I can tell you without doing it that it's almost the same as raising rates, right? So changing it from 0.5% to 2% is almost like doing a 1.5% rate increase. In this case, it's not 100% of your revenue, so it'd be more like a 1.1% rate increase. So you could potentially lower your rates by that amount if you were to change your assumption about growth. The question is, do you lower your rates over the next 5 years, or do you just say, that's great, in year 6, which isn't on the table right now, we won't have to do another 7% or 6%. We might be in a position where we only have to do 3% if that growth comes to pass. We don't know that growth is going to happen. So do we want to assume that it will and adopt lower rates now, or do we want to assume that it might not and just position ourselves to maybe not have to do as high a rate increase in year 6? So I can send you the numbers, but that's basically what you'll be looking at is, are you going to be optimistic, or are you going to be,
Well, realistic, the number of meters coming online, because you can see it, unless we deny occupancy permits, right?
So what I would ask then is show the difference of coming online this year. And show us that, and that's it.
Okay.
We'll have to multi-layer it because like one of those is gonna be a single meter with 75 units coming online, right?
Then
So
figure out what that's going to
Yeah.
be. What the per 75, that was 75 households
You-
of multifamily, like he already knows those numbers. So you can show us that, maybe maybe that works out to a percentage, that we can remove 1% this year. Let us know, and maybe you can find a way to do that, I don't know.
So you said this, you said that's gonna be 75 new meters of multifamily?
So 75 new households, multifamily on 1 meter.
Yeah,
on
so
1 meter,
the problem
okay.
comes where we can't just count exact meters, because some of these meters serve multiple units.
Got it. Okay, so the master meter
I'll
will
have
serve
to get the numbers.
75 dwelling units?
It's not by meters, it's by units or
It's
something.
by, yeah, has to be by units and multifamily numbers, it can't be by.
Multi-family wells is lower water usage.
Yeah.
They-
And if Baumgartner comes on in the next 9 months, then we can talk about that one next year for a percent or wherever it works out to, but as of right now. You have 75 units and that is all that we have that are coming on board.
But you're looking at, I don't believe you're doing this for 2 years, you're doing rate increases for a 5-year period.
But we can always adjust it like we did before. If we can prove different, and
Did we ever adjust it though? That was the
you
thing.
remember your second year when we totally eliminated it,
Did we? I missed that then.
you were there, there was
I
the,
was fighting for it.
yeah, it was like 5% that we
Oh.
didn't, we had a year of 5% we didn't charge.
Yeah, well, that's
Just
just.
if I remember correctly, it's been a few years now.
Yeah, no, that's because we stopped it for
Correct,
that,
correct.
but we never actually.
But that was because of these discussions that we looked at, said,
Yeah.
he could be pretty close to being right, let's stop it for a year. Just- We're always open to that, we're not trying to, you can't overload, it's illegal, so.
Well, like I
Okay.
said, I'm excited you guys are cranking, so. Looking
And
forward.
we're trying to do what's right, that's all.
I want to see this backup storm thing. We got a lot of.
So do I.
We got.
We all.
Thank you, Mark. I can sleep at night. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
All right. Let's move into business item 3, statement of qualifications proposal.
That's me. So candidate statements, I'm just gonna read this little quick summary. Candidate statements are optional statements of qualification included in the voter information guide.
Thanks.
See you, Greg. Happy days.
Yeah.
Sorry.
At the recent budget workshop, council unanimously expressed support for having the city cover these costs for the November 2026 election. Because the actual costs depend on the ROV, the registered voters rates, and the number of candidates who submit statements, both of which we won't know for months. For budgeting purposes, staff is proposing a $10,000 lump sum rather than trying to estimate a final cost in advance. Other cities do that, they have a guessing game, and then they come back with a budget amendment to fix it, which is an option. Our initial proposal, we're kind of going back and forth with what's more strategically better for the city, is we could just have a lump sum, like I just said, like $10,000. Or we guess, but it's hard to guess ahead of time, like I said. So it's really where
So is it like 700?
it's about, well, we looked at the numbers from the previous 2024 election. Is about $1,000 per person if there's only one, because this is in English and in Spanish. But if there's 2 people sharing the page, it goes down to about $500 X. So it's really variable. It depends. We could have, there's 3 seats open. We may have 3 candidates, in which case we don't really need to do it. Or we may have 9 people interested. We may have 20. I have no idea. So it's hard for the city to, I'm going to be proposing language to you via resolution, but at this work today, I'm asking for a little more direction than we had at the workshop, just so I can come to the council with a little bit more of a proposal as far as, do we want to cover every candidate no matter what? If we have 15 people, that could end up being 15 grand or more, because these rates are going to continue to rise every year they do. Or do we say $10,000, anything over that,
Just
the
divide.
folks, we just divide it, and the folks will owe, $80 each or something like that, it's all variable again. I'm just giving ideas, but again, it's impossible to estimate really. One thing that Roanoke Park does, because they also do this, they have capped it at a 200 word limit. I believe it's $250 now, but to curb some of their costs and to make it fair for every candidate, they do 200 words. That's a suggestion that I would likely propose. But again, the cost allocation, if we either don't use the money, depending on how you decide to do it, it would just roll over, or we could always do a budget amendment if we need a little bit more. But I don't want to do, I just want not a policy in place, but a resolution in a sense that breaks down council's goals for this, so that I have something to look at to know whether I'm coming back with a budget amendment or not. So I'm just kind of curious to hear your guys' point of views, have staff discuss it so that I can bring a staff report, agenda report. It'll be at the next meeting, because we're also gonna be calling for the general election at the next one as well, which is basically where they say the ROV will be handling the election services for us, which we think is gonna be about $30,000, so this is all on top of that. So it's really about how much does council want to budget and or not
Well,
budget.
at the workshop, we came up with supporting that, correct? Was that?
Yes, it is unanimous.
Yeah.
But we were gonna come back with a budget amendment, I believe, because we didn't put it in the budget.
Yeah, it's not in the budget,
We didn't have a value yet, but.
and we won't.
Alright.
Or we substitute the election.
Oh, we just cap it.
And that's why I have a couple suggestions, but we need it memorialized prior. So I don't want us to say that we will pay for it and then we have 30 people and it's way out of it. So it's more of a. I think it's smart to have at least a general number or.
Like you said, candidate.
And it's
But there's a possibility that not every candidate would be seeking reimbursement, right?
Right.
Or someone just,
There's lots of possibilities with
yes.
this.
Would it be a reimbursement or would we pay it upfront?
Because currently we pay it up front and we ask candidates whether they won or lost, which is one of the reasons I said I don't like to do this, because a candidate loses and I still go, you owe me $500. Sorry, you lost, but you owe me money. It's also, what we talked about at the budget workshop, I feel, and I have a whole bunch of bullet points that I won't read now as to why it's advantageous for a city to do it. But basically it's a paywall. If we're looking at equality and equity, it's fair to prospective candidates who maybe can't afford. We've had candidates in the past who like, I can't afford that. I'm like, that's unfortunate because that means voters don't have information on this person. And it's not about campaign. It's about voter information in the packet. They should have a right, I feel, as our elections official, to know in at least a paragraph under 200 words about each candidate that they are potentially voting for. So I think it's a disservice to our community to not offer it, but I think we just need to curb the expectations of how much are we willing to fund really. And that's what I need to propose to you, or send a proposal for your.
Bring it to council, I say cap it and like you said, 10,000.
I would even go 5,000.
5,000?
They currently, we had budgeted 4,500 because that was about my guesstimate last time. So if we roll that over,
Okay.
which would, because that's in this current, I put it in the June budget, but we wouldn't actually use it till next year.
Can I ask you this, should we do it per seat? Because you have 3 in one, 2 in another every year, every other year.
It does shift, and with the potential of districts coming, that could be it could be different depending on that
Right.
direction as
Maybe
well.
it's
So,
per seat. We do it and we do like a 2,000 per seat.
but I feel like this election will likely cost more than the 2028 election because there's 3 seats per state.
Right.
Or you do 1,500 per seat. Because 1,500 would cover one person. Because it usually, if one person ran, it'd be, and they wanted to put something in there.
Yeah.
They don't have to,
It's about $1,000.
but they have the right to do it. It's about 1,000.
Yeah, they don't share the
75,
cash,
whatever,
whatever.
I'd say something like that. So I say maybe 1,500 per seat.
Because that can, I mean, the reality is, it is
That would be
hard.
2 statements. Guaranteed free seat.
Well, since we have 45 in there for this year, do we have budget amendment, or can we just?
That would they could roll.
We didn't do anything.
Yes.
I mean, it's already there.
Yeah.
That's 15 per seat.
But if
There you
he
go.
wants to have it in his resolution.
I mean,
Yeah.
the resolution can have the whereas is that just that council is, they will fund these, so
Yes.
anything over, or do we
I would
go?
cap it in that resolution.
Yeah.
Because you don't want council to come in next year and
Exactly.
drive 10 grand or 15 grand. I would
Yeah,
cap it in your
1,500 sounds good. We have
resolution.
45 already, put it in the resolution.
Just for my. If it's per seat. $1,500 per seat.
Yep.
We eventually go to. districts, and there's one seat here, but I have 3 candidates who want that seat. They split that, there's another 1,500, and additionally, they'd be paid.
There you go.
So that way, no matter what.
If 2 candidates go for 1 seat, you're almost covered,
Yeah.
or not for in that range.
Yeah.
I think it makes, I like it, if
50
it's,
each.
if it's something open election like this year. You have 3 seats, so that is what, $4,500.
Exactly.
I'm good math.
Good math.
There's a reason I don't think finance. So at 4,500, let's say I get 8 applicants. Or qualified candidates. Then they're just covering the difference, and what if they can't or they refuse, then they still the option, it's not. That's the link, cause I need to be able to express that to people in about a week.
Yeah.
What their expectations are financially.
Right. Sounds good. Let's do that. Split it.
1,500 per seat.
There you go.
Then you will,
45, and if 5 people run, they just get their share, and some people may not ask for it.
Right.
yeah, it's still up to them,
I didn't do
it's optional.
They don't have to
You don't have to.
do the thing,
You don't have to.
or they can pay for it themselves, you know.
Right.
You good, Mike?
Good job.
Perfect. Good job. Let's move on. Facility attendant position, Mike, that's also.
Yeah, so the next one. 2 computers here, excuse me. See mouse there.
The things. Thanks to that.
Alright.
We have it there.
We got a little computer.
You need a battery?
I don't think so, it's just.
This isn't mother.
Wanna have keeper?
Is it working? She's not even. Hold
I'm
on.
just gonna pull it out from
My
my computer.
Office, don't you?
Yeah.
We're gonna put in
This will work.
budget amendment to get a new mouse and system for this.
There you go.
I think it's just needs a mouse pad.
It's not even showing up though. Let me see your light.
I put the batteries in.
Put it in the wrong way?
No, I haven't.
No, I was working like 2 seconds. Okay. Part of the tentative agreement, we talked about this at the last admin meeting, with CPAC is. Is that we'd be taking over the AV responsibilities for the building. In doing that means we have to create a position. We're looking at a temporary, under 1,000 hours, it's not permanent, it's not permanent part-time, it's temp position. Basically, we'd have to create a position title. Which we're looking at calling a facility attendant, and I came up with the definition, class characteristics, things like that. It's in very draft form, has not been reviewed by HR quite yet, because we want to get that agreement approved with CPAC prior to it forward, but we want to have this ready to go, so that, because we have to do interviews really quickly and get people on board, so that you can have an easy transition. So really today, I just wanted to give you a quick update that it's facility attendant, and we were looking at that because eventually the scout cabin. We're looking at renting that out, and it's not, having worked in recreation for many years for all kinds of events, when we have people rent out a facility, you don't just, here's the keys, see you next week. You typically have somebody on site, like a facility attendant.
Yeah.
They're the ones unlocking the doors, turning the lights on, doing the code. They're there in case something happens, or if an incident report needs to be filled out, or
Right.
so many different problems can occur. And then
On
they're also
rep.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're the person who also locks up the door at the end of the day, make sure the site's how it should be. They cleaned up how they need to be, all the terms of their agreement, etc., depending on how the event it is. Alarm up and leave. Basically, they're doing exactly what we're having to do at CPAC now, because they're going to continue to do those services for us. They're going to now unlock the door, unalarm, set up the tables, run the AV equipment. I looked at a couple other cities, very easy. Most of them have this position already. It's pretty basic. Noting that this one is temporary, under 1,000, which is very easy with the type of events we're looking at an hour. For meetings and whatnot, but I just want to get direction from council, because it is going to be a budget amendment. To our budget, because it will not be ready by this coming meeting. overall, so just wanted to see how you guys.
I think we've already talked about this kind of extensively.
Briefly.
Yes, we need to have something happen on there as part of the negotiations going on with Lenore herself. So yeah, I mean, let's bring it to council, but I got support on that to bring it to full council.
So likely what, just from a date perspective, I'm going to bring this probably to council, either as an additional resolution, or it may be separate, I'm not sure, I'll have to work with Alex on that, but to the CPAC agreed, because these have to go, they're kind of in tandem.
We need his info.
Yeah, but we also need both groups to
Right.
adopt it, but either way, one way or another, and we don't have to go in order, because at some point, like I was saying, for the scout hut or other facilities, we need this anyway.
Yep.
And
It needs to be two separate things, so it's not linked to just CPAC.
Yeah.
So if you do it with Alex, bring it separately here, we have to have a description, absolutely generic description.
And it's one of those things that we'll also have to do an amendment to our salary schedule likely, because it's gonna be added to that. And our rental agreements with groups, once, that'll be a whole different thing when we start to actually rent that building out, but it'd be nice to have the position fully ready and fully funded. But
Thumbs up to council.
is there any additions that you guys are?
No, I think you got it under control as much as we've talked about it. I think you got it nailed down. Awesome. All right, anything else? Let's move into E, adjournment at 3:41. Thank you, folks.
All right, I cannot stop this from recording, so I'm gonna do a manual, we'll board them off.